It's the No Last Race podcast with Mick and Louis, brought to you by Tiakau, New Zealand's champion racing stable.
Welcome into No Last Race, wherever you're watching. Louis whom and what? Michael Guerin, Tiakau Racing, boys get paid. We're out here at the Coalface in one of the biggest weeks of punting and racing you will get this whole entire year. Mickey G, the prince of the punt, how are you?
Mate, I'm great. Look, if you like punting in any form, we've got something for you this weekend. It's kind of remarkable to think that this thing's occurred. I don't really know how it's all come about, mainly because of COVID. But the biggest jumps race in the Southern Hemisphere, and it's the most unique race New Zealand has. It's not the most important, but it's the most unique race we have, the Great Northern at Ellerslie.
Yes.
The Livamol's our best or best equal weight for age race.
Yeah.
The Everest, which is the richest race on turf in the world, and two New Zealanders in J-Mac and Chris Waller have a huge chance of winning it. And obviously Steve Hanson's in that horse and a couple of other Kiwis. And the Caulfield Cup, which bizarrely feels, I don't mean to be disrespectful, almost like an afterthought at the moment. And I hope the chosen one wins for New Zealand, but it's very odd to think that the Caulfield Cup may be run this Saturday and you'll go, I should watch that too.
You're taking my takes. That's what I wanted to lead off with. I completely agree.
Sorry, brother.
Welcome and thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be here for the next half an hour, 35 or so minutes. We'll see how long we go because we've got truckloads to get through. And
you were telling me something interesting off camera before. You said that you're now getting more interested in the Everest than the Caulfield Cup because of the amount of info and hype it's getting.
It's a real kind of subjective matter, this, isn't it? You know, what race means what to you because of the kind of little echo chambers that we all live in. You're in a unique situation where you're the editor of the New Zealand Herald. You're at the breeze ups with NZB. You're doing a box seat. You're doing the weigh in. You're doing No Last Race. So I'll be very interested to know in your world what's front and center. But for me, in the kind of traps I'm running in my social media pages I'm following, the markets I'm looking at, the punts, the futures punts I have on, where I've re-upped on Nature Strip at 9s, believe it or not, after it lost to Libertini. The race I'm unashamedly most excited about this weekend is now the Everest. So, you?
I think if people have had a futures bet, that becomes the race they're the most excited about. The race I'm looking forward to the most, probably the Great Northern Steeplechase, because it's such an iconic, amazing event, and I love it, and I know how challenging it is because they are the real warriors of racing. Out of the two Australian ones, I'll be more interested in the Caulfield Cup for two reasons. It leads on to something else, the Melbourne Cup.
Sure.
A friend of mine, Andrew Forsman, co-trains one of the horses who can win, or at least be in the race, the chosen one. I find that the Everest is the Everest is like the 100 metres at the Olympics.
It's people like me.
A New Zealander's never going to win it, so you can't be parochially involved in it, but Nature Strip is edging that way for lots of people in New Zealand because J-Mac and Waller are incredibly popular people. Yeah. Steve Hanson's in the horse with a couple of mates of his. So I think if you took Nature Strip out of the Everest, the interest levels in New Zealand would drop 20%. But I do think Sydney racing, because they've got so much money, are really good at hyping racing. Sometimes it puts me off. And the other thing is, of course, Melbourne have no crowds, so their whole spring carnivals felt really flat.
Yeah, it's kind of like, which gear are they going to get to? And obviously when Derby Day comes around and you're in this Flemington Carnival, it's going to hit top gear in some capacity.
But again, there's going to be close to no people there.
So what's it going to look like? Very good point. Do you know what the Everest is to me? It's for people that love shiny things. And they've done a great job of marketing it, and this will be its 4th or 5th year now.
Isn't that Sydney full stop? I mean, Sydney is so that.
Yeah.
It's just... Look, I think it's a wonderful thing. By no means am I potting it. It's just you're interested in what you're interested in. By the same token, if Bostonian or the Bostonian and Catalyst were in the race, the hype would be through the roof over here. 100%. I've got one story I'm allowed to write for the Herald tomorrow because we've got heaps of fields going in the paper. I won't bore you with the details. But about one 600-word story. And I thought to myself, well, what do people reading the paper tomorrow care about? Do they care about Melody Bell? Because I've already had her this week for Horse of the Year, and congratulations to all the success that I've had at Tiakau with Horse of the Year. But do they want to hear about the Great Northern, which is run 5Ks down the road from where the paper's printed? Do they want to hear about the Everest, which is massive but doesn't really affect us, or the Caulfield Cup, which has a New Zealand horse who has a chance of winning it. So it's really tricky to work out what's important.
What
over
if
the
what
next
have you
3 or
gone
4
with?
days. I should do a composite story because you can't ignore any one of those things.
Oh, so you're hedging.
Because come Saturday morning, we'll go far, far bigger on the Livamol and the Great Northern Steeplechase. We'll go big because there's so much other stuff on the Australian races coming through. And again, it's very unlikely there'll be a New Zealand trained winner.
And people are probably looking at me like, oh my gosh, that guy is just the anti-patriot. How about you just watch the New Zealand racing? The Mark Claytons of the world will be rolling their eyes at me going, Louis, just support our industry.
Also, the other thing
and
too
I
is
am.
the deals with the New Zealand Herald has are with the codes.
Of course.
And that's to promote New Zealand racing.
Makes sense, right?
There's plenty of other people promoting Australian racing. And those things will get... Also, I do the writing, so my expert opinion on the Everest doesn't mean that much, whereas I can probably get more out of the Livamol people or the Great Northern Steeplechase people because there's not many local journos.
Okay, all right. This is what's coming up on the show. So we're going to get into some punting angles, and we've just explained this is one of the biggest days we're going to get to in a long time. So we're going to talk about punting on big days of racing. We're going to get to the hell of a race with Hell Pizza. Shout out to them. And I've actually given you a nudge this week, and I've said let's do the Everest because I think let's change it up, and I think it's a fascinating race. We're going to talk about the Te Akau treasures. 2 from 2, by the way. Do you see that? Sophisticado,
Sophisticado was really good, and Carmelis won last week.
So hopefully you guys managed to mouldy those together or have a go on. But so I've got a new one to show with Te Akau Racing. We'll have a look back at the Windsor Park Plate as we have a look at the Livamol.
We need to show you an important part about the Windsor Park Plate, which is what you need to get in your mind's eye before you bet into the Livamol this Saturday.
So I was at the Te Akau season celebration on Sunday night. Fantastic night. Heaps of buzz about Melody Bell. Congratulations to Dave and Karen and Julia Rose for putting on that night. But the room, huge. They've got lots of owners, and you forget. Well, you don't actually. She's just an amazing story, and there's lots of buzz around her, and lots of people were licking their lips to have a punt this weekend. Just before we move on, I've given the context about what racing we have this weekend. Best race to punt. Most interesting race to punt. Not where you're going to make is the easiest to make money, but the most interesting punting race out of the lot that's going on this weekend.
The Caulfield Cup is always a great punting race, but to be perfectly honest, it's too complicated for most people who have an 80% interest in racing, unless you're an absolute zealot, because marrying up the form from the ex-European into European stayers, into the horses who are coming back as 4-year-olds, into the horses who are the hardened old handicap horses, and Caulfield's a prick of a track. So all of those things in the mix makes it really, really tricky. And bizarrely, they don't have the barrier draw to after the Kunji today, which again is even weirder because they're losing exposure time where the Everest is cannibalising them. It's the most fascinating of the races and the best race to punt into because the Livamol is the back end of a Triple Crown. So in any Triple Crown, by the time you get to the third leg, there's a lot of exposed form around the first and second legs, and a lot of horses have already ruled themselves out.
Yep.
And that's the case for the Livamol this week. But I'm gonna historically enjoy the Caulfield Cup and the steeples. I'm gonna enjoy watching the mares and the Livamol. But the Everest is the race which is probably going to make me hold my breath when they jump out of the gates, which the other three won't.
It's staff done an unbelievable job of building anticipation, but yeah, I've got to say, yeah, Peter Volandis, the mastermind behind this, and the mastermind behind this, he can't script the stuff which has gone on with Nature Strip throwing James out of the barriers. He can't script the form of these other horses, the Grey, Classique, Legend, and G-Tra. This is equine and this is racing. This is pure racing stuff that's gone on, which has contributed to this race having so much anticipation. So I think that they're licking their lips and they've gone, wow, this is a really cool scenario we've got for ourselves.
They've got enormous buy-in from the media because they pay them so much money. Their relationship with the Daily Telegraph's ginormous, and then they have these shows like the Kosciuszko and the Everest show, and they play them because they have so much money, so they can do what you want. With an enormous amount of money, and there's no better example than, say, the NRL, Rugby League. I'm more of a rugby fan than a league fan, but I watch more league than rugby because the shows are better. And I had that conversation on Sunday night in the Koru Lounge with two of New Zealand's leading rugby commentators. And they said, hey, I'll watch the Matty John show, love it. Love it. Because they realise how good it is. So that's similar for racing.
Are you going to name drop?
At the top of the tree.
Oh, wow. Jeff Wilson, sure. Let's move on.
And the people because people like what's entertaining for them. And Sydney racing
like No Last Race.
Sydney's very exact. Well, Sydney racing is very entertaining. And that's where I reckon we've missed a beat in New Zealand racing. I've got no doubts about this. I'm not trying to be political about it, but us not having presenters on track is a mistake. People can tell me it's because of the money thing, but we're the only country on earth where a racing presenter can go up to someone who just won the Great Northern Steeples, put his arm around the shoulder and say, mate, what do you make of that? And I reckon that the fact that we're not doing that, we will have someone at Livamol, Bevan Sweeney will do a great job there, but I reckon that's a missed opportunity for us. People can give me the figures, I understand all that, but at some stage the figures don't matter as much as engaging your audience, and that's what Sydney's done really well.
Mick, you've summed it up absolutely beautiful there. We're letting an opportunity, maybe potentially this, if we look at it from the wider scheme, we're letting an opportunity go here. And when you tie it back to Sydney and you make it sound like that, and the work they do with their Greg Radley strapped to the Sydney Tower last night doing the barrier draw, it's a scene, isn't it? Okay, well there we go. So that's what's going on. That's the context. Let's rip into it and talk some punting, shall we?
It's the No Last Race podcast with Mick and Louis, brought to you by Tiakau, New Zealand's champion racing stable.
And we will talk about Tiakau and the champion racing stable because they've naturally got the two race mares that everyone wants to talk about when we talk about the Livamol. But punting on days like this, for blokes like myself, where it can almost be a bit overwhelming because there's so much going on.
The word sickos. Sickos like yourself. Who sickly want to punt on every race.
Yeah, okay. For the degenerate portion of people watching this, which I would say is about 85% of the people watching this.
God bless them. We love degens. Don't we love some degens?
Yeah, we do. So I'm sitting there and I'm kind of like, I want to, oh, look at this field. I want to get into it. Oh, look at this field. I want to get into it. I've got the Caulfield Cup though. I can't spend all my money. How do you kind of do it? How do you sit there and either pace yourself or work through the day?
As we said way back at the start when we started talking about punting, find your horse for the day. I don't care what it is. Doesn't matter. Find your horse for the day and have half your spend. And then you can do whatever you want for the rest. But don't be reactionary to what you've seen. For example, let's say there's 10 races per meeting. It's a nice, easy figure to work with. And there's going to be 4 meetings you care about playing into: Sydney, Melbourne, Ellerslie, Hawke's Bay. Don't try and bet on 40 races. Because if you do and your stake's $100 for the day, unless you're having $2.50 bets, you're not going to bet on every race. So say to yourself, this is my big bet for the day. And then you actually enjoy it less if you bet every race. If you're betting every 5 minutes, it's almost like going to a bar and playing the game where you have 20 beers and you have to drink one every 5 minutes. Eventually you get sick of it. You're not enjoying the experience.
Well, it depends how much you're winning.
Well, true, but not many people who are going to do shotgun betting are going to win.
Yeah.
Well, enjoy.
Is that what it's called?
You have shotgun betting. You're just having a blast and trying to hit something.
Yeah, right.
What you need to say to yourself is, what do I really want to bet on today? Because if you're sitting in front of trackside and making your decisions on the fly, you'll make bad decisions.
Yeah.
And you'll, by osmosis, be told stupid things and you'll make bad decisions. So sit down with your mates in the morning, have a cup of coffee, have over your breakfast and say, these are my 6 bets for the day. And if you put those bets on, and then you want to have a pick 6, which extends your day out, or you want to get involved in a race later on because you like the look of a horse, yes, by all means do that. But if you try and bet every race, you're not going to enjoy the day because you're so busy trying to bet every race that you're not enjoying what's going on. You can't learn anything. You can't look at the horses. You can't take on board. And you also can't enjoy what's happened. There's going to be horses win, and part of what we don't do very well at the moment is enjoy that experience. So plan your day. Plan your day. Plan how much you want to spend. And if you're someone watching this who wants to spend 200, or you've got 300 to play with, say, I'm doing this with 200. So I'm doing the smart betting now. And this is my fun money for later on.
Yeah.
Because if you get in there and have 50 each way on the first thing in the first race at Hawke's Bay, and it gets beat, and then you start chasing, that's when you dig yourself a hole you don't need to be in. But also don't forget, Saturday's a big day. It's a special race, the Great Northern Hurdles and the Great Northern Steeples. And the Livamol special because Melody Bell might become a 12-time Group 1 winner, which is, again, remarkable. And the Everest is a big deal. And so is the Caulfield Cup. So if you're too busy punting relentlessly like this all the time, you're going to miss some of the fun of it. So don't be scared to say, yeah, okay, I don't like the rating 74 at Hastings, I'll stay out of that, and play into the races you do want to play into, because otherwise you might as well just be at the casino playing roulette where there's another one coming round and another one and another one. And that's not a very enjoyable experience because you're not taking in the human content of it. So plan your bets early. Okay, give yourself a little bit of silly spend for later on, but as always, punting, make sure you back your bet of the day first.
Yeah.
Make sure you back your bet of the day first, because if you get to 40 races and you're exhausted and loved it on Saturday night, you're like, wow, what just happened? If you can say, I had half my spend on my bet of the day and it was something that paid $3.20, you've won for the day. And if you lose, well, your bet of the day lost, and that's fair cop to you. And that's a really simple way to go about this week, because there's too much information for any human being on earth to bet into every one of these races.
So I think a couple of things you said there resonated with me. And since this is the first weekend, we kind of start getting into the great races, the Caulfield Cups, and you know, if you want to call the Everest a huge spectacle. And I reckon we're going to talk more about this going to the Cox Plate and the Melbourne Cup. First thing that you said that resonated with me is I've started getting my bet of the week or bet of the Saturday on before the Saturday. And I know that when track conditions are at play, it's not always the smartest thing to do.
Well, if it's on TRB, you can always buy it back.
But for me, sell it back. What it means for me is it means then I stake that, and I've got that out of the way, and I always that's never my full spend. And then I will let myself on the day have some playing around money, as we call it, the playing around money. And that's the fun that's obviously smaller, and it lets you go up and down. And look, more often than not, I'm probably losing that. But if my bet of the day comes in, and that comes back from the first thing you said, always have more on the thing you like the best.
Staking's crucial. But if you're having 40 bets at the same price on Saturday, that means you gave all 40 horses the same winning chance. Well, that's ridiculous.
So then where it comes to is on great days like this, when you've got the Caulfield Cup, the Great Northern, the Livamol, the Everest, I feel often not pressured, but I'm like, this race is too good. I want to have a go at it. Yeah. I want to have a go at it. Is that myth that actually these races, they're the best races to bet into? Is that just a myth? Is it actually...
Well, look, they are the best races to bet into from the actual pure percentages, because there's so much exposed form. For example, normal race this week, Livamol's $2.60, Melody Bell versus $3.60 Avantage. Well, there's not a lot of fun there for people. And most of the form's exposed, so you can't find great value.
Yeah.
Because there might only be one spot left in the top three for the place bet. Caulfield Cup, you can back, we'll use the Chosen One because he's a horse everybody listening to this would know. You might better back the Chosen One at $7 a place or something like that. And because you've got markets in separate countries and even separate states where they're backing their own horses as well, all of a sudden, if you shop around, it might be $4.50 a place in New Zealand and $8.25 a place in Australia, because someone else has taken no money for it, and bookies, and they have bonuses and all sorts of things that go on. On the big days, there's more action.
Yeah.
Perfect example is the Everest. Now, most people watching this don't know who's going to win the Everest, because I don't know who's going to win the Everest. It's a tricky race. But what you do know is what you don't want to back. Now, if you go to the bottom of the page for New Zealand TRB, there's the head-to-heads. And they're beautiful, because you can say to yourself, I don't really know what's going to win the Everest, but I tell you what, I don't like Libertini from barrier 12. And there might be a head-to-head Libertini versus something you don't really care about. And you go, okay, I'm going to back that. And all of a sudden you can find ways of bidding, because the more options you have, the more ways you can find to win money, but or buy an interest in the race.
Yep.
So there's a lot of those floating around. Now, for the Caulfield Cup, you can back who's going to run down to 10th. And you might think, okay, the Chosen One's a very honest horse. He had no luck last week. I reckon he'll run top 10. I'm happy to back him at $2.10 a place, at top 10. So there's lots of options. And on the bigger days, there's so much money going into the pools. It's enormous that you don't need to cop any bullshit from the bookies. If the bookies aren't giving you a chance on Nature Strip, the tote will, because there's so much money going into
100%.
So you can find, all the time, you can find $5, $6, $7 place chances, where in the Livamol you can't. So on a big day, if you're willing to bide your time and you're willing to find what you want to bet on or who you're taking a stand against, I don't like this, this can't win. You do that, you'll find somebody somewhere who'll be having a head-to-head, a top 10 bet, a way of getting it. Of course, you could even lay it on Betfair. And on Betfair, there'll be so much liquidity in these pools that you'll be able to get on for whatever you want. So they're great days to bet, but don't forget, if you want to love racing, you've got to be able to at least say, the race which is coming directly after the Everest, for the next 5 minutes, I'm not betting into. I want to see these people win. I want to see them enjoy this, because if you just punt for the entire day, then the racing means nothing to you.
You become numb, don't you?
Well, it's going to the casino.
Yeah.
And that's fun sometimes.
The
but
air
that's not
conditioning's great.
That's not what this Saturday's about.
100% hear you. Okay, that's fantastic. And look, the other great thing about these days that we get, where there's so much good races and the classic races, is you always talk about information, and information is power. Well, the information becomes so much more accessible when you're all of a sudden you're betting into a Caulfield Cup, right? Because there's racing.com, there's punters.com, there's the New Zealand Herald, all of the racing publications will just start pumping the content out there. And if you want to entice, you like a chance, you can probably go find information that would back up what you were liking.
Oh, yeah, there'll be comments on every horse and and there's that many different speed maps and all that sort of stuff. But most importantly, like, don't be backing in a race just because someone tells you to. This is your money. You earned it. So that's one thing punters always need to remember. Don't take odds you don't want to take, and don't back horses you don't want to back. Like, at the end of the day, there's nothing worse than losing. If you lose money backing a horse you wanted to back, that's how the game's played. You lose money backing a horse you didn't want to back, you're a dick. And there's nothing worse than when you go, how the hell did I end up having 120 on Libertini because I got the $6? It's drawn barrier 12 on the Everest. Just don't back it.
It's like sometimes you're talking to myself.
Well, you know what? And it's one of the things which there's so many people listening to these podcasts who are part of your page who are such enthusiastic gamblers.
Oh, we love it, yeah.
And that's great. I love that shit. But you don't, you earn this money.
Yeah.
You worked in a job, probably with some pricks you don't like.
Yeah.
So make sure that you spend it the way you want. And then you're more chance of enjoying the racing experience. Look, take the steeplechase this week. There's a good chance the horse who's going to win it isn't very good. And there's a good chance the jockey who wins it's probably someone you don't know much about. But enjoy it. Take 2 minutes away from the sickness of the punt and enjoy that person's moment.
For a laugh, I'll tell you my story on that from last weekend. So it's the race 8 at Harwater, I think, and Sharrock's got Cinerama going around, I think.
Yeah, the breeders.
And the breeders, that's right.
Supreme Heights race.
And Cinerama, there's some local bully for it in the morning, and it's in at about probably 460, 480. I was like, no, I'm not going to back it. I don't know anything in that. I'm just going to stay. I'm going to watch that race. Just before it jumps, I look at it, and it's gone drift, and it's gone to like 760, and I'm like, oh, okay, now we're getting silly. Yep. I'm going to have a punt. What does it do? Falls out of the gates, comes screaming home for about 5th or 6th, and I was like, this is why we're not meant to do this, because just because I've done exactly what I wasn't meant to do, it's fallen out of the gates, and I'm cursed. So, well,
the other thing too is that's a drift which has come from Betfair. So our bookmakers have followed Betfair out. So Betfair said, we don't like this horse for whatever reason. Most of this based on algorithms. It's not based on actual human intelligence money. It's based on barrier draws and strike rates and that sort of thing. And also the fact that there were a couple of very good horses in the race. It was mapped to be behind. But once Betfair drifts, our bookies will follow them out. And the most famous story in New Zealand racing in recent years is how Betfair put Cool as a Beal, second favourite for the Karaka Million, out to $20. And our bookies followed it out to like $12 or $15.
That's right.
Which has nothing to do with logic. It's just them following the money. Right. And then what happens is you end up getting trapped into backing something. If you didn't want to back Cinerama first thing in the morning, you shouldn't have been backing it at 4:30 in the afternoon.
No, I know. I'm telling you it's a laugh, all right? We're having fun. Everyone's laughing.
But was it fun when you lost?
No.
Exactly. That's the thing about racing. It's more fun when you win.
Yeah, it's like you know what? You need to trademark that. It's more fun when you win.
It really is.
So because the Caulfield Cup's this weekend, just very quickly, out of the great races, what is the race you've had the best collect in your lifetime?
Best collect? I've had a couple of races I've won 40 or 50 on. But
like out of the great races, so the
most regular collect?
The Caulfield, Melbourne, Cox, anything in that top echelon of racing, what's the race that you've had the best success with?
The ATC Derby.
The
Derby. The Derby's great because they always underprice the Australian 3-year-olds who can't stay. We can send 3-year-olds across there who can stay, and you can get good money for horses you know are going, because getting there is half the battle.
Yeah.
So a horse like, I don't know, a good New Zealand 3-year-old can turn up in a Derby over there, Non de Jure or John Snow, or this year Quick Thinker, and win their Derby, and they're like, oh, I hadn't heard of that, because they were all biffing on about some horse from Arrowfield they were talking about 4 weeks earlier.
That's right. The Sydney media's got
the Derby. The Derbies and the Oaks are great races for us to bet into, because you can get serious money on. The most money I've ever won on one race was actually a Queensland Oaks.
Queensland Oaks?
And
that's not a great race.
It was that day. It was a very great... And I told everybody who's in my crew, we should back this for as much as we can get on. It was an Australasian-wide punt. It was a big, big punt.
Everybody's now Googling, sending invitations. How do I get in Mickey G's crew?
We backed this thing from $26 and it started $7.
Oh, yeah.
And it won. And I'll tell you a funny story. I was actually, because I did a lot of MC work for the All Blacks, as you know, I was MCing the VIP rooms for the ABs, and I was watching the race with Corey Jane on my phone, because I wasn't at home. The All Blacks game was on. I'm watching the race on the phone. It's me and Corey Jane. And I said, yeah, we're jumping up and down. He goes, oh, how much did you win? So I told him a number. And say mythically that number was 120. He thought it was $120.
Yeah. As you would, because you're a normal person.
And I was like, what do you mean?
He's just a normal bloke from Lower Hutt or something.
And he goes, you won $120. And I was like,
yeah.
Oh, shit.
Well, no, technically you did.
No, Corey, that's not exactly what happened. When I told him the truth, he's like, oh, Jesus. And his wife was with him. And he goes across and tells her, and she's like,
they're just normal. Those guys are real normal people, aren't they?
And those things sometimes don't come off. But that was one where we spotted a horse in New Zealand and I said, this will win.
Yeah.
And you get that shit wrong all the time. We got one wrong with Avantage. Of course, we were tipping everybody in the Tarzina, but this was a whole different stratosphere. I went into the race and thought, unless Leith falls off, this will win.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Corey Jane, what a great New Zealander. Huge lot of racing this weekend. There you go. There's a bit of a discussion about how to punt into huge days. Let's do it. Let's move on. Let's do it.
No last race. It's Mick's Hell of a Race with Hell Pizza.
Mick's Hell of a Race with Hell Pizza. Hell Pizza, they love the show and they love No Last Race, as I said. And I'll tell you what I love.
We love pizza.
I'll tell you, well, no, but this pizza, the silencer of the lambs, loaded with slow-cooked Oamaru lamb on kawakawa harissa base with spinach, red onion, tomatoes, and feta, finished off with mint and horapito aioli. This stuff is the goods.
Well, that'll come in handy on Saturday because when you're loading up on the punt, I don't drink when I punt, but I know most of the boys and girls do. If you're loading up and you're having a few drinks, the worst thing you can do is be in charge of a TOB account when you're drunk. It's like being in charge of a fighter jet. That's just a bad idea. So you need to get some pizza into you.
And I think a lot of the lads are qualified in that, actually. So this stuff's good. There's nothing better than some Oamaru lamb anyway. Hell of a race. I said to you this week I want to do the Everest. I'm fascinated by this race. I've been looking around. You could tell me there's about 4 or 5 different horses that'll win this race. I'll tell you what I've done. I backed Nature Strip that day that it trialled up huge, going back to 3 months now.
Yep.
I backed it to place and I got $1.63. All right? $1.63 to place.
Well, look at
everyone had the same idea.
You'll get your money back.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And
You will. We'll run top 3.
You reckon?
Well, he's got barrier 5. It's actually worked out beautifully for him because he's got barrier 5 and the horses inside him don't have any speed out of the box. So he'll jump straight to the lead. And the good thing about that is that they've been dicking around with him because he's a prick of a horse.
He's got a lot of issues.
Well, yeah, he's got some mental issues. And hey, I know about mental issues because you and I both have them, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Toby probably has them as well. But I reckon they can kid to him enough here. There's not enough speed rushing up on the outside of him for this race to upset him. I think James can probably get him into a rhythm. I'm not sure the horse is where he needs to be, but Chris is a genius at this stuff. But I think from barrier 5, he gets his chance to get across them, get into a rhythm, and hopefully, this is the crucial part, between the 1,000 and the 800 and even 600, get himself into his own rhythm. Because when James has to hustle and bustle him, that's when the horse gets pissed off and he over races and he turns into a prick. I think barrier 5's perfect with him, with no speed inside him. I reckon he leads. And then the question is, where are G-Tra and Classic Legend around him?
And this is speaking of a race where information, you can go and read so much, and there's so many different opinions about how the speed map's going to come out on this race and where the horses are going to settle. Libertini out way wide. Is she going to go right to last? G-Tra and Classic Legend can probably settle middle to just behind, off middle, back of the field, do you reckon? Probably.
Yeah, you would think they'll both be somewhere between 4 and 7.
Yep.
But it almost doesn't matter where they are as much as the tempo, because if James is able to go close enough to even time, he'll go quicker than even time, obviously, because these horses will go 1.8 or something like that. But if he's able to go the speed he wants and then can put the foot down from the 600 and come home in 33, then they have to come home in 31.9 to beat him. Now, Winks could come home in a 31.9, and these horses could probably do it under different circumstances, but whether they can do it coming wide
so this
is a crucial factor. So the tempo, that tempo between, if he leads Nature Strip, the 1,000 and the 600 is crucial, because if he's in a nice easy stride and he's breathing well and he's happy, then James gives him a squeeze and he puts the foot down. It's not an easy horse to come from behind. He has been so far this campaign, but that's because he hasn't got into that rhythm. And as I said, I think barrier 5 gives him, barrier 5, particularly without much speed inside him, gives him a chance to get into that rhythm.
For people that are watching this race, because I feel like you're going to be able to tip us off here, Mick. What are we meant to be looking for between the 1,000 and the 600? Like what? Because this will be the sort of race where you can tell which horse is going to have a chance to win, aren't you?
horses are most likely to get pissed off when you ask them to do something they don't want to do, which is if he pounds out of the gate, because they're going to want to get to the rail, and then James takes hold of him and he doesn't like that.
Yep.
That's an issue. So if you see James changing his hand position, the horse chucking his head in the air or the horse opening his mouth, then he's pissed off.
Yeah.
Or when another horse comes up outside them. The horse comes up inside them, wants to race them early because he's a fast race horse and he's used to running. So the other two things that'll get him pissed off. He's fighting his jockey or he's fighting another horse. When he won down the straight at Flemington, he just jumped to the lead and got into a rhythm. And he's happy as Larry. And that's, in your own mind's eye, imagine if you had to run 200 metres at the park. If in the first 50 metres I'm pushing and shoving you, and then I'm outside you and we're running really fast, you won't have as much energy and oxygen for the last 150 metres of that run.
Yep.
Whereas if you are able to get away from the start, cruise into your rhythm, it's a lot easier experience. So you think about yourself when you look at a horse racing, what would annoy you? Most of that shit's the same stuff that annoys horses.
So this race from a betting perspective and that's great intel, and that's what we try to watch for, and I'm trying to do more of it myself. Watch the jockey's hands. I feel like that's, for me, that's
especially
the easiest.
with J-Mac, who have the gloves on, and you can spot them easy, and you
That's
can
right.
see where they are. Jockey's hands are crucial.
That's right.
To what's going on with the horse. And obviously I can't tell if a horse is breathing correctly, but usually you can tell if everybody's sitting. The stiller the jockey is, the better things are going.
That's a real simple way to go about it, and I'm glad you said that because it means more coming from you. Now, from a punting perspective, Mick, this race is fascinating. So, Nature Trip, as I said, can you believe that? Well, you probably can. I got 9s after it lost last start to Libertini. And I thought the reason I took it is I said, I don't actually know if Nature Trip can win this race. Well, I know he can. I don't know if he will win this race. But for $9...
No, $9 is great betting.
He's getting
$4.20 now.
That's right.
And he's the horse they'll come for on the day because it's Waller, it's J-Mac, it's all the strike rate stuff will ping into him. He's going to be the horse who's going to be on the front page of the Daily Telegraph on Saturday morning. There'll be money for G-Tra. People like him. I think Classic Legend can win the race.
Yep.
But I think G-Tra is the horse who is most likely to sit just off the speed and have first crack. Classic Legend might have second crack down the outside.
Would you chance we'll see a swooper win this late?
I don't see enough pressure.
Okay.
I don't see them blasting through the first 600 where they come back to them. So by swooper, there might be a horse between 4 and 6 who can come over the top. But man, it's hard to come right over the top of those horses unless they go too hard. And particularly if the favourite's going to lead. The races where swoopers win the most often are the races where the favourites aren't the horses in front,
So it's off the
aren't
pace.
a long way in front. You're going to have maybe the first, second and third favourites in the first 6. Libertini's going to come outside them and beat all of them. She's going to need to run past 3 very good horses. One of those horses might have a bad day. One of them might be below its peak. For all 3 of them to have a bad day and below their peak is asking a lot of any horse back in the field.
Oh, it's a tantalising proposition. Do you have a gut feel?
I'm probably not going to bet in the race. I'll probably, if I'm going to bet, I might split bet G-Tra and Classic Legend, hoping I get $5, $6 a pair, so I'm back them both at $3. But I like Waller. I wouldn't say we're friends, but I like him. He's a good bloke and is a person I respect a lot. I am very close friends with James McDonald, so I'm happy to watch the race and hope it wins. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm also happy to split bet to make the money. And if I lose to those boys, I'm happy to see them win too.
Because you're a great Kiwi, Mick Guerin. That's a hell of a race.
No last race. It's Mick's hell of a race with Hell Pizza.
All right, Mick. We've kind of got to cheat today. We're going to do 2 hell of a races. This one's not a Hell Pizza special though. This one's, I guess we'll call it a TRK Racing special. What we're going to look at here is, well, for everyone, we've seen this race, haven't we? We straight away we know what's happening here.
So this is the Windsor Park Plate from 2 weeks ago. This is the lead-up race to obviously the Livamol, which is on this week. Key factor here, they've strung out. So here are the two. Here's Melody Bell. Here's Avantage.
Yep.
And they're way back in the field because up the front is the Mitigator who's really stringing them out.
Yep.
Now, the Mitigator's not in the race this week, so you're not going to see this level of...
Is someone going to do that?
No, there's not this level of tempo in the race. Now, what that did is that tempo not only strung them out, but secondly took bad luck out of play because everybody got to settle where they more or less wanted to settle. But The crucial factor in this race, because you're sort of ignoring the leader because he's not going to be part of the finish.
And actually, can I just say, the reason we're watching this is we want people to watch this race and listen to Mick here with the context of what we're betting into this week, all right?
Yeah, exactly. So what you're betting into in a $2.60 versus $3.60 market is Melody Bell, who's drawn wide this week, barrier 12, against Avantage, who's drawn barrier 6. So here's Melody Bell. She's in the Tangerine coming first.
With the John sash.
Yep, coming around. And there's Avantage outside her. So as you look at this, they're more or less even. Avantage is getting up to her, and you're saying they're going to... Cool sign Mav's not in the race. The horse is in front. So there's Melody Bell. It's in the middle. Melody Bell, Avantage.
How many times right now would you say Avantage wins this by a length?
No, look, I thought these are two horses who one of them is fitter than the other horse. The other horse, Melody Bell, is the better horse.
Sorry, horses, just horses in general. If this is
with her momentum,
yes.
I thought yes, she
the
was.
The pattern of the race,
I thought she'd go past it.
Yeah.
But what you're seeing here, so if you watch this on, so Melody Bell, Avantage has got her even, and you're saying, look, there's not much between them, but Melody Bell's fought back to beat her. So you're willing to say, if you mark them out of 10, Melody Bell's a 9 and Avantage is an 8.
Real close.
Close enough. There's not an enormous amount between them on that run. Melody Bell should improve more and may be more comfortable at the 2,040 metres. Won this race last year. Previously won a New Zealand Stakes or a bone crusher. But Avantage is out of a Zabeel mare. She also there was comparable enough. She was a 8 versus a 9.
You can't knock her.
Now, this week she's got barrier 4 and Melody Bell's got barrier 12. Now, I'm not saying I know what Troy Harris is going to do, but it's awfully hard to see how Melody Bell gets to camp on Avantage or get in front of her without expending a significant amount more energy. So if we're marking that close enough to the mark, 8 versus 9, and we're thinking one horse, Melody Bell, may have to cover 2 to 3 lengths more this week, Avantage has the better chance. Melody Bell's the better horse, better performed horse, better overall horse. She's the horse to beat in the race, but she's going to have to cover more ground, and we're getting 3.6 for one, 2.6 for the other. I actually think Melody Bell will come in. Avantage will get it to $4. So if we're saying, I can back two horses with sort of 8s and 9s last time, one of them's going to be in front of the other this time, and one of them's going to be paying $4, and one's going to be paying $2, Avantage is the better bet. I thought she's been a little bit bland. Not bland, sorry, they're probably blunt to the line. She hasn't punched that line the last couple of starts. She's out of a Zabeel mare. I reckon the 2040 will actually suit her. I wouldn't be surprised if she wins this week, even though she's not the best horse in the race. That's being a little bit disingenuous to Sapira and to Alyssa, who are very good horses, but I do think that they're going to need to be, Sapira's got a horrible draw, they're going to need to be significantly improved on what they did last start by maybe 2 lengths, and that's a lot to catch up and run past a horse who I think could well be in the box seat in the race.
Oh, it's a fantastic race, and you're so right. And this is so the other night at the Te Ako celebrations, everyone's kind of buzzing about Melody Bell as you are. And for me, I said when we sat here 2 weeks ago, look, I'm going to be really happy if she wins it. I don't think I'm going to back her. I can't back her. Jamie wasn't sure about her fitness. There were just a couple too many question marks. Watching her fight back and how good was Tony Lee's call, she wants it more. You feel like she did. You feel like she sort of said, not today, buddy. Gets up. There's a real buzz around Melody Bell. I will probably have a bet on Melody Bell, and I'm going to trust that she's got the class. Troy Harris has got the good enough balance.
So you're willing to cop 2.6?
I'll boost. I'll find that.
Over the 40 races, you can bet it on Saturday. You're willing to cop 2.6 for her to come from barrier 12 to win the Livamol. I'm not saying she won't, but I'm saying it's close enough to the mark.
I said to you yesterday, and I stand by, I would take 2.5 for Melody Bell to win this, mate. Over 2,000, and on track and distance, she's won before. She likes it there. She's comfortable. Mate, I just don't know how many times I personally can second guess a horse that's won 11 Group 1s. Yep. And I will take 2.5.
I've got no doubt she's the best horse in the race. I think there's enough about a few others in the race that I just think Avantage was close enough to her there that I'm willing to back her because she might get a 5-length easier run. She may not, but I also see it being slightly more jumbled this time because I don't see a natural pacemaker to string them out. So barrier 12 could become 3 wide from the 1,000.
Yep.
I'm not saying that'll happen.
But it could. And there's you can see the pattern for it to happen like that. Yep. And that's where it gets a little bit touch and go. I love it.
Do you have an opinion on the Great Northern Steeplechase?
Clado, come on. No, I don't, mate. No. I'll watch it. No, I'll watch it. Arjun. Or is that the...
That's the hurdle.
Yeah, that's the hurdle.
Yeah,
Ah.
that's the hurdle. The horse who won the Pakuranga Hunt Cup was super, so he's really hard to go past. So I
I don't want people to think that I'm being a dick about jumps racing. It's not. I don't watch
maybe
enough of it, so I don't have an opinion.
Maybe it's like drinking whiskey. It's one of those things you grow into as you get older.
Is it? Have you always liked it?
I love it. I love jumpers. I think all
don't you
jump
love?
jockeys are stark raving nuts, but I love them. I want some of my favourite people. So look, I'll absolutely watch it. I feel a bit icky watching them race over the hurdles and steeples when the ground's this hard. It just looks dangerous.
Oh, when they first group one day at Hastings, where a couple slipped out because I think the ground must have been hard and there must have been a bit of water on it. It's not.
Actually, and on that note, I do need to mention something before we finish up for today. Obviously, to William Fell and to Rosie Myers, obviously, I know they have different names, but obviously they're married. To everybody in the Myers family, we're thinking of you guys because, really horrible incident at the trials last week, which looked innocuous enough, and Rosie's got hurt. She's been in an induced coma, and I spoke to William last night, and they're hoping to bring her out of that process, but they don't want to say too much publicly because they don't want her to regress, and therefore they have to take those statements back. But yeah, everybody's thinking about Rosie. She's a really lovely person, really hard-working woman, and obviously fearless. So out of all the things I want to hear this week, I don't care if I back a win, I don't care if I back a lose, I don't care what happens. If I'm hearing by Sunday or Monday that Rosie's in a far better position than she is now, then that's far more important to me than who wins the Everest.
That's bigger than punting, mate. Completely agree. Thanks for saying that, Mick.
No last race with Te Akau. It's easy and affordable to be involved in New Zealand's champion stable.
It absolutely is, and this is the time of the show at which we wind this down, but before we do wind it down, we've got to do the Te Akau treasures, because last week, we're not dropping this segment. I'll tell you why we're not dropping this segment, because last time we did this, last episode, we tipped out Sophisticado, Karma Lass. I think if you
actually, Jamie gives these videos to Julia Rose, right? So Julia Rose gives them to us, so we have horses to tip you, so it's not from us. It's actually from Jamie.
It's from the wizard Jamie Richards, and he collected plenty, didn't he, at the awards. So what we have for you today is I'll give you Mick, I'll let you do the racing. Actually, we'll play. I'll just tell you
it through, and we'll go from there.
All right. Okay. So what we've got here is
it'll be in the tangerine colours.
Yeah. That's right. No, we have a 4-year-old gelding. So this is a bit different from last week where we had 2 babies, right? Yeah. So we've got this one that jumps from the start straight away. Chala. Okay, now Chala is, what's he out of here? Dissident. He's a dissident gelding. All right, so this is what Jamie said here is this weekend he races race 7 Hastings. And you watch this, it's important that he's jumped here because the word we've got from Jamie is, he's a slider, he's a bit of a rough one, but he's got a lightweight, he's going to jump, he's going to roll forward. Yeah. So I guess what we watch here is important. What do you reckon?
Well, look, out of the gates really quickly. He's a horse actually showed a bit of ability a couple of years ago, or a season ago or so, and obviously took a bit more time, or something's gone wrong with him along the way. But here's a horse who gets into a rhythm, nice, easy, high cruising speed. This is what you want around Hastings. Hastings is a really hard track to swoop on because if the good horses get up against the rail, and a horse like this who's fit.
We've seen it so many times in the first 2 days.
We saw that the first couple of days. They travel their horses down a treat. They get them there in the right condition. Look, here's a horse who going through his gears here. He's got a few more gears. So I'm not saying he's going to win at Hastings. I haven't examined the field, but he's got the ability to get up on the speed, and that's going to be crucial. And as I said, over the line here, look, he's stretching out nicely. Yep,
so the young apprentice, Joe, stays on. So he's claiming 4. He's got a very light weight. And Jamie said pretty much the same thing. He's going to go to the front. They're going to roll him along. It's over 1,200 metres. I believe it is race 7. There you go, Te Akau. Sponsor this show. And because we love punting, they love helping us punt. And I hope everybody had a collect. I multied them together. Karma Lass and Sophisticado felt pretty smart.
Tell me, I've got something to tell you actually, which is interesting for the boys get paid, dudes and dudesses. We're trying to get more stories and racing content on Trackside. I don't work for Trackside anymore. I have other jobs, obviously. But we've had a real win this week through a family of sponsors. And I'm talking the big people. Cambridge stud, Waikato stud, Te Akau's involved.
Notice you didn't come to Luke and Ben and myself and ask for us to chuck some.
But I tell you what we are going to do is weigh-in's coming back. And weigh-in was a really enjoyable show to do on Sunday mornings. Emily Boss and Opie's wife, wonderful to work with, very knowledgeable presenter. It's coming back this Monday, 8 p.m.
Woo!
We thought it sits better in prime time because Sunday morning a lot of the boys are dusty, including me. And
Clado's on here.
And great show to bring back this week. 4 massive races. We've also got a feature on the ready-to-run sale breeze-ups. And what we're going to do is go out there and try and tell people stories because racing's cool, but there's lots of really cool things going on in racing with some of the studs and all that sort of stuff. So if someone out there's got a really good story, whether it's about their horse, get in touch with us. And it's not about us getting on TV and doing expert panel stuff, because it's not about that. It's about telling people stories and showing you races and giving you a chance to find out where the good horses are going. So I promise you, if you watch, I'm going to ring every trainer from these big races on Monday and say to them, where are you going next? Where aren't you going? Where's the value in these markets, to try and push people down that path? And Emily's very good with the horses. She understands, and the horse people. So, yeah, it's on Monday night, 8 p.m, every Monday pretty much for the next 4 or 5 months. I'm really happy to have it back, not because it's about me being on TV. It's about telling people's yarns. So, yeah, if you get a chance, check it out. It'll be online as well, but 8 p.m. Monday nights, weigh-in, moving from Sunday mornings, and couldn't pick a better weekend to come back.
How do we... So I like what you've done here, Monday night, just nestling it in with the BGP kind of media schedule. There you go. So no one's going to have to be watching anything else. You're not going to have to come away from our content to watch it. So it just kind of nestles in perfectly.
Right, on the subject of content, Love Racing's going to do heaps of post-race interviews for us and stuff. But say, for example, if you guys do some crazy shit, right? Or say someone's at the Kamara Gold Nuggets and they win the Kamara Gold Nuggets and you end up some vision on your phone. Send it to us, because racing has to be fun. It can't just be about the punt. It's got to be fun about people doing crazy shit, or my dad's horse winning a race and him being in tears. If you've got some content for us which you think would fit nicely on your Facebook page, but you think, that might be interesting for those weigh-in people, send it to us. Because if you can get it to us, we're really interested in telling everybody stories, and whether that's down at Omakau or at Ruakaka. So that's what we're hoping to achieve out of it, and because it's sponsored by a big range of people right around the country.
These guys have helped out?
Yeah, these guys, they've helped organise it more than anything else. David's been great in organising it, but it's not by any means a Tiakau show. It's a show which is going to touch on a whole range of breeding things. There's bloodstocks involved. It's important because I think, like Stuff, for example, newspapers have stopped racing.
Yeah.
And there's so many places where racing has stopped. But if we don't tell these stories, then there's going to be no next generation of owners.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And look, this is why you get on with us so well, Mick. We all can see the big picture. And I think what's happened throughout this kind of period of racing where let's say it's been trying, the people that are actually trying to help and progress the industry have all floated to the top. And that's the people watching this show here. It's the people sitting around the stable.
Also, the TRB have been good about it. Edward Rennell's now the head of broadcasting for the TRB, and he had to run up the flagpole to Dean McKenzie. So they had to approve it, otherwise it wouldn't be going on their channel. So we appreciate the fact it's going on their channel, which is where it belongs. But these things don't happen overnight. So a lot of people have had to say the right things and do the right things to get them to happen. So
someone's, and Opie's had to, pull in a huge amount of favours to get Emily to come sit in the studio with you for 30 more weeks. So
it's not a lot of fun for Em. She made me promise I'd behave myself better this season.
Oh, yeah. And you just looked her in the eye and went, yes.
So honestly, she's remarkably good to work with, because
she's a talent.
I know a lot about punting, but she knows horses intricately.
Yeah.
She's a horsewoman, for want of a better word. So, yeah, it's great. So we're going to have some fun doing it, and it's prime time on Saturday, Monday night. So by then you should be over your hangovers.
Are you having a punt in the next couple of days?
Nothing sure on God's earth I'm having a punt. Look, I'm going to go through them. I want to have 4 or 5 bets. I had 6 bets last weekend, which is an enormous amount for me. I would never have 6 bets in a weekend usually. I'm going to have 4 or 5 bets this weekend. I may not back anything in the Everest or the Caulfield Cup, but I'll watch them intently. But I'll find something I like. Yeah.
You going to tell us about them?
No, track conditions will be crucial.
Well, we can come back to you, mate.
Track conditions will be crucial, but yeah, look,
Oddly vague this week.
No, I'm going to back a horse called Majestic Man on Friday night at Addington. I reckon that'll win. It's $3.
You squeezed it out of him there.
$3. I reckon it'll jump to the lead, and I reckon it'll win. And on Saturday, I'm going to see how the track plays. Just interested whether there's any damage to the inside of the track at Hastings. I know they moved the rails out, whether it's been roughed up by the first couple of days, and whether the swoopers can come into play. So that'll interest me. But if Avantage gets to $4, I'll back her, because I think they were comparable runs, but you're getting twice as much for one horse as well.
Michael Guerin, Louis Himmelwatt, Toby in the corner, Tiakau Racing, no last race.
And the pizza people.
Hell Pizza, thanks for tuning in. That's another mammoth episode. There's a lot of punting to go and do, so off you go. Take this knowledge, make some money. See ya.